Okay, so we're good to go. Welcome everybody. This is the follow-up session for the W5T Elite Trading course, and purely just for the futures day trading strategy. So what I want to do is, I thought of this a couple of days ago, and so what I did was, the 8 futures contracts that I look at every day, I went through my morning routine this morning and took the screenshots. So it allows me to show you how I've set the day up, where I've isolated the wave counts and what's the sort of things that I'm looking for, because that's the most important part of the day really. Isolating the start of those wave counts when you get up, recognizing where you are on those, and just other basic observations of where the chart is heading at. And again, this is the 5-minute chart on these futures contracts, okay? Okay, so the first one this morning, and remember, I get up and I do this before the European session opens, okay? So I'm looking at futures during the European session and the US session, okay? So at this time, this point in time is about 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m. my time, 8 a.m. my time, okay, see down at the bottom. This is the YM chart. This is the one I started off first this morning. So, first of all, just want to highlight, this was the close of yesterday, okay? This was the close of the stock market session yesterday, this line here. And as we can see, this was the Asian session all the way up to here. And now we're getting ready for the European Open in about an hour's time. So that's where we are at the moment. So the next thing, where do I isolate this wave count? Okay, now for me, when I get up in this European session, I can see we've had this double bottom with a slight lower low on this left here. So that's where I isolate the wave count, because we've got this really big move during yesterday, and that continued into the, through the close and into the Asian session, and then we went flat. So in reality, this is a really big long wave 3. So what I'm looking for, because I've just got up, I'm looking for this to pull back. I'm looking for this wave 4 to pull back and looking for support. Okay, so before we go on to that as well, when we see this double bottom, at the bottom here, when you see these stochastics, you see these higher crossovers from this first one here, that gives you a bullish bias, okay? And when it does break out, that's the trend, okay? Then obviously the one thing I've got to do is I've identified, well, the software's identified there's a wave 3. So what I want to do is put my 535, 90 to 140 measurement in there, because obviously I'm going to be tracking that live as this pulls back to see if this breaks that 140 or if indeed it stays through there, okay? Also note, on this wave 3, the false breakout bars on the top in the overbought zone, denoting a really strong bullish trend. The stochastics do not cross over at all in the oversold zone during this period, okay? All the way through the day and then into the Asian session when we got this wave 3. And then we start to pull back during the Asian session, and we don't get any more because we've got this now what we call a bearish bias. We see these stochastics crossing over lower here, okay, you see that? So we can see there's a pullback imminent. I've got my 535 on there, okay? We're still within 1940, so I've set this chart up and I can see what's gonna happen, okay? So any questions on how I've set this particular chart up, or any observations that I've made, you've got to keep it basic. You've got to look previous day's session, no further back. This was the low point before we started the big move. So any questions on that part so far? Trevor, you know, out of the 8 futures, I had 2 trades today, and we'll go through those. One hit target, one fizzled out a little bit. You know, trading this 5th wave move, you're not going to be trading every single day, but the ones you do get are high probability, so they are good. I've been developing this strategy now since the beginning of 2018. We're in July now. We're going through 3 months trial phases of signal service now using this strategy, so I'm finding it very, very well, very useful. This is the 5-minute time frame, okay? 5 minute. Yes, you still use the 5-minute time frame, okay? And you're still looking for those lows, and we will talk about how to progress through the day when you wake up to spot further sort of support resistance levels to do that. So the 5-minute time frame is extremely important there. So now, this is the YM trade that I did today. We're going to look at it on a live chart in a minute. But remember that wave 4 pulling back? It did, okay? And it found support in the green zone. If you look here, we had stochastic crossover. We did have a false breakout there, but then it stopped. And then we were back crossing over in the oversold zone. The 535 did not break the 140%, and as you can see, the crown was higher than that original pullback there. So, you know, we were running out of juice on this pullback. So very, very simple, the entry. We've got all these ducks aligned, if you like, all these stars aligned. The stochastics crossed over in the oversold zone. 535 is between 90 and 140. And we got this really long wave 4 pullback that's found support in the green zone. Okay, starts to move away. So we're looking, okay, it's pretty good. Where do we want to go long here? So 6-4 moving average high is our starting point, but we've got this initial move up here that failed, okay? So we want to make sure we are above this pivot point for our entry. So 24835 or 24835 was the entry. And as you can see, we tiptoed, triggered into this, and we came back down to test this support level, didn't take out the stop. This is where the stop was. And then as the US session opened, it started to really gather momentum, as you can see here, and then hit the 5th wave target. Okay, so this, you know, no chart is pretty. You've got to remember this. Nothing is a perfect pullback. You know, sometimes it takes a while, especially on futures during the Asian and European session, because there's not a lot of volume there. But if you've got a really good support level and you're on a longer term bullish move, you know, from yesterday we had a really strong move. We pulled back slightly against there, good support. So then we are looking for that long 5th wave move. And this was the one that hit target today. So we've got, again, remind you, all of these have to be in the parameters. The stochastic has to cross over in the oversold zone. The 535 has to be between the 90 and 140, and the wave 4 has to be in our green zone. We then set up our stop loss and our entry. Have we got a risk to reward over the minimum of 1 to 1.6 into our target zone? Absolutely. There's the 1.6, okay? Now, 1 to 1.4 is acceptable on futures for day trading, because what we're going to do, what we do, and what we talked about in the first lesson for the futures day trading strategy is that we've got lots of ways of managing this trade and getting, you know, getting risk-free reasonably quickly there. So, any more questions on this? Okay, Trevor, do you use 5 minutes for trading futures? Yes, 5 minutes time frames, okay? Yes, Trevor, I need to, it's the 140%, so it needs to pull back between the 90 and 140. And as long as it doesn't break that, and as you can see on this example here, it was quite deep but didn't break the 140. And then we pulled back again to form this wave 4, but the crowning of this profile was higher than this, so it still didn't break the wave 4. And now we are looking good because we crowned again, and then we actually start to turn positive here before we even enter the trade. We've already set up where our potential entry is going to be, and our stop loss. This is good. We've turned positive again. So, you know, you'll take that into consideration. Okay. So that's gone through the first setup I did, YM. Okay. Set the chart up, found that that start point to isolate, identified where we were in the trend, and then all I had to do then was keep an eye on the chart and look out for that wave 4 to find support and look for that entry. But again, we have to make sure we've got a good risk to reward on there as well. Now, you can see at 24900, this is the daily pivot point printed by the software, and by Thinkorswim in this version. But you know, you've got to take this with a pinch of salt. This is a pivot point based on yesterday's price action. Okay, and yes, it may play a factor, but it's not a deciding factor that's less than 1 to 1.6, so you wouldn't go into this trade. Okay, they are there, and they are there to make you aware that that's a potential pivot point, but you've still got to go into these trades because your target is that 5th wave target zone on the software. Okay, and you can manage that trade as you go along to lock in profits. So if there is resistance at that pivot point and it turns away, we can take out the trailing stops and take profit. Okay. Okay, just to remind you, that was the entry here. The 535 did not break the 140. And also, when you are starting to managing this trade and it starts to move higher, look at the false bar form at the top there in the overbought zone. That shows good, strong, bullish momentum. So that gives you confidence once that starts to happen that you can be quite aggressive with your trailing stop. Okay, when it's not happening, you've got to be a little bit more conservative and allow that momentum to build. Jerry, how much is one YM contract? Because I do CFDs. Jerry will be able to answer that one. I mean, this move was from 24835 to 24920. Okay, so that's quite a big move. Okay, quite a big move. That was worth 1.6% on the account balance. But again, with pips and ticks, yeah, that's right, Jerry. Yeah, more. Yeah, it depends on the broker, but the tick is $1. Yeah. So this move here for one contract, you could have been $400 or $500 win there, I think, something like that. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So this was ES. Okay, now everybody says the indexes follow the same route. Now they don't. Okay, out of all of the 4 indexes that I cover, only one real trade was a winner today. NQ was a little bit, but it did eventually go on. But their support levels and their pivot points are slightly different because they're reacting to different indexes. Okay, so you've got to measure each one. You've got to take each one as it is. Okay, so this was this morning, again, just past 8 a.m. this morning, European time. This is the close of yesterday. Again, I always make sure I know where that is. We then have this really, yesterday, we had a really sort of rangy period at the lows, okay? This was the low point just here, isolated it, and then we went rangy, then we broke out, That's the one. Okay, so isolated down here. It came back on the wave 2, and then during yesterday's session we had this big long bullish move again, just a little bit, you know, like YM, and then we continued into there. But look, it hit the next day's pivot point and found resistance, okay, and then started. Now at this stage in the morning, the wave 4 pullback was already in the green zone, but look at the 535, okay. Also, you can see we've got the crossovers on the stochastic getting higher, so we can see right at the beginning yesterday that was the point where we were getting ready to go long, and that's where it went. 535 is right on the cusp of breaking the 140. Okay, so if that breaks, there is no trade. You've got to be extremely disciplined. Yeah, the stochastics crossed over in the oversold zone, brilliant. The wave 4 is in the green zone, but if that 535 in the next 5 or 10 minutes after this screenshot was taken breaks that 140, there's going to be no fifth wave trade. Okay, you've got to be that disciplined. Trevor, it didn't take out the original stop, Trevor. You've got to leave it until it starts to get momentum. So it's not about dealing with it. It's just about, and the guys in my trade room will know, and especially my inner circle guys that are in this training as well. I leave stops where they are, okay, until we start to gather momentum. Then I start to adjust. So what you've got to do is just leave that stop. If it comes back, takes you out, fine. You've lost. Go on to the next one. But if you're setting these high probability trades up, the likelihood is that that pullback will be shallower, okay, because you've got the 535's good, stochastic's good, pullback zone's good. That pullback that went back into the green zone was a higher support level, okay? So this was me setting ES up this morning, already concerned that the 140 was going to be broken. So this is my daily routine. So ES isn't the priority on my radar, if you like. Yes, as long as Trump isn't tweeting against your trade, that's right. Again, we did have false breakout dots at the top there, but not as many as YM. It wasn't as strong a bullish move as YM, okay? So all these things are going through your mind when you're setting up first thing in the morning. So this was NQ. Now, I did trade this. I didn't do the screenshot, but I've got the live charts here, so we're going to go through them when I've gone through these slides here. Now, with NQ, again, we've got the close of the trading session yesterday. This is me starting at 8 a.m. in the morning, European morning. Got this really strong move yesterday that continued into the overnight session and found resistance at that pivot point there, okay? Very, very simple. Yesterday's low was at this green doji. That's where you isolate, okay? Yesterday's low. Because we've got a really strong bullish move, and that's obviously our wave 3. So we look back, we go, where's the low? Boom, there we go. We isolate it. We got the 1, the 2, the 3, and now potentially we're on a wave 4. We draw in our 535 measurement, 90 to 140, still good at this moment in time. We've crossed over in the oversold zone. Everything's looking good, but we look at that 535 and we actually must say to ourselves, this wave 4 can't go too deep, because if it does, it'll break the 140 and it'll be no good. So that, the one thing we're looking at this moment in time is that ES is probably going to break. NQ is reasonably close. So all we do on that chart is just keep an eye on that 140 breaking line. Okay. Now, also look at those false breakouts on the top there. Yesterday's session and overnight into the Asian session there, really strong bullish momentum, that means, okay? And then even when we pull back here, we don't cross over in the oversold zone during this flat line during the Asian session at that pivot point. It's only when we start to get to the close of the Asian session, an hour or so before The European session opens. Do we start to sell off a little bit here, starting to get that pullback? Do we get that crossover here in the oversold zone? We're looking, Trevor, we don't want this high here. We want the start of the trend, the low. Okay, this high is no good. We don't want to measure this bit here. We want to measure this trend. So we must start on the low. Okay, this high is not good. It's not part of this trend that we're trying to measure. Does that make sense? We need this low. Does that make sense, Trevor? Okay. RTY, next one. Right, I'm not going to put any of the ellipses on there at the minute. Who can give me an observation about the start of the trend, or any observations that I've just talked about in the last 2 or 3 slides about setting this up? What should I be looking at? Anybody? Don't be shy. The lowest low. Yeah. And you can see that right there. Yeah, that's it, Jerry, Trevor. Before the trend. This indecision doji here is the low in yesterday's low. Okay. So we isolate here, and then the Elliott wave count gives us this really awful looking trend. Fine. It's over, it's met the rules, and then we've got a little A correction, and then we start in another trend. 1, 2, 3. Look where the 3 hit overnight. So this was the close of the session. The bullish momentum continued, and look again where that wave 3 found resistance. Okay, on the next day's, on which is today, on that pivot level there. There's you know, this is pretty, these good observations you've got to make here. Also, we've got to look. So we got the low point here, and we've isolated. The indicator suite does the rest. The 535 is right on the cusp of breaking the 140. So that's one thing we've got to consider, because when you look at this, this is quite deep. Yes, the indicator just restarts the count, Trevor, okay? The indicator restarts the count. So it did its little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we started the count again from this low, because this low broke the previous wave 4, and then it goes 1, 2, 3, and then we're on a wave 4. Okay, now, this is deep. It's gone into the amber zone, but we're about to break the 140. So this again should not be a priority unless it turns around pretty quickly at this time of the day. So as you can see, by setting these up every morning as part of your routine, you are discounting some of the lower probability moves that are on the table. So you're then going to, you know, in your mind, concentrate on those that are probably going to be a higher probability. So you're reducing the amount of stress that you're going to go through looking at all these different charts. Yes, Don, I am recording this, and it will be up in the underneath the main lesson video for day trading futures. Okay. So we do have false breakouts, but nowhere near as strong as YM or NQ, as you can see here. So as you can see, that initial move during yesterday's session was very, very small. Then we started to get going. Then we got the false breakouts, okay? So again, you've got to keep in your mind that that wasn't as strong a move as NQ and YM. Okay, all right then, Mark, thank you. Yeah, it's being recorded. Okay, the next was oil. Let's set this up this morning. Again, we've got the close of the session here. Now, I've done this on purpose. We've got two observations here. We've got the low, so we started the wave count down at this double bottom here, okay? We've got the 1, 2, the 3, and then during the session yesterday, we started to pull back, and then into the close, and then we found support on a wave 4 pullback, and then during the Asian session, we started to gradually move up. That wasn't really a trade, but what it's done is identified that trend is potentially over now, and it's pulling back on a wave 1, okay? So again, we're only interested in fifth wave trades with this trading strategy. So this one goes to the bottom of the list, okay? We still keep an eye on it during the day a little bit because we want to make sure that this start of this bearish move, it could present another opportunity later on in the session, okay? So, you know, that's a very, very simple one in that it doesn't make the grade, you know, NQ's closer, YM is closer. So this one doesn't quite make the grade, but you still got to go through that process of setting it up. There's no real high to set up here that's a potential short. It's got to be that low. We've got, that's the trend. Yeah, even though we've had a real big range period in there, that's the trend. Next one was 6E, so euro. In this case, we have the close here, okay? Now, so this is midnight, midnight to midnight. So what we're looking for now, in this case, is the high of that overnight session. Because as soon as we look at the chart, we stand back and we can see a bearish move, okay? That's a bearish trend on this 5-minute chart. That's obvious. We see the top, we isolate here, and this is where our wave count is right now, okay? So this is when I've woken up in the morning. This was a little later. This was almost 8:30. Whoa, you see, started at 8:25, I'm almost through all of the charts, okay? So it only takes half an hour. Yes, no, never to sleep, yeah. One thing to note as well, when I got up, we've got this false breakout recently, false breakout dots on the bottom here, denoting strong bearish momentum. You know, so is there a potential fifth wave trade at the moment? Absolutely not. We've already done it overnight, okay? During the Asian session, there were some great bearish moves in there. Yeah, we didn't get them. We're actually bearish. Is there any potential trades for us at this moment in time when I've got up in the morning? No. I've set the chart up. I've set my isolation where it needs to be right now at this point in time. I've got other priorities on other futures that are looking more promising. And then gold, okay? So here, again, this is the close. Now you can see I've isolated at the high of yesterday, okay? The high of yesterday, we've had a nice wave 3 down through all of yesterday's session. And then we go through the close and it pulls back up on a wave 4. Then during the Asian session, we start to rejoin the main trend and it hits the wave 5 target. Now, obviously, if we're awake in the Asian session, we could have traded that, but I wasn't. I was asleep. Sometimes I do sleep, okay? Now, one thing I did want to add here is look at these lower crosses on this stochastic here, showing quite, you know, reasonably a bearish bias. Now, it's not a strong bearish trend because we don't get the false breakouts, okay? But we're still strong, you know, got a bearish bias for the momentum. So I've woken up, I've seen that I've missed a gold trade because I should have been awake during the Asian session. Okay, we've hit the wave 5. Potentially dead today, it could bounce, go high, and we could get a trade. And again, we're going to discuss that in the next follow-up session for the stochastic trading strategy. But at this moment in time, there is going to be no potential trades for me. So again, it goes to the back of the queue. And then finally ZB. Not everybody's favorite to trade, but you can trade TLT. It follows this. It's very, very similar. Okay, so we've got, this is the close of yesterday's session. I isolated at the close of the previous day's session. Okay, so this whole 24-hour period here was a downward move, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. That was the trade yesterday, a fifth wave move short. We should have traded that. Look at that 535 there. Okay, stochastics crossed over in the overbought zone. Wave 4 has found resistance at yesterday's low, pivot point, and in our green zone. So yesterday, that was the fifth wave trade on ZB. But I've woke up this morning, where are we? That has continued to finally get a low, and then we're moving up. So there's no trade there for me either. So just to confirm, spotted the high, we've got a big move down. It's continued into the Asian session, and now we're potentially bouncing, but there's no trade there for me right now. No trade at all. Okay, so let's go to the charts. Right, before we start, anybody got any questions on that setup, on that routine you really should be doing every day? I'm only looking for those fifth wave trades. Trevor, whether it's a continuation to the upside or the downside, I'm just looking for that. So this is how my charts look, okay? I've got two panels, two screens. I've got 4 charts for the index futures, and then on the screen above this, I've got the 4 charts for oil, gold, euro, and ZB. Okay, so every morning, just go in and set these up as we've just done. I just want to go through the YM trade very quickly again, just to show you. This is where the live chart is now. So again, we just saw that on the slide. It did pull back, and we've had an ABC correction. So the software does carry on counting, okay? We are in an ABC correction right now, which is usual after a fifth wave has been taken. Now, if the C wave gets too long, we're potentially in a bearish move. Look how this pullback is still stayed within that 90 to 140 for that original move. Really, really freaky, eh? But what we're looking for now is obviously we're going to go into the close, and this is probably going to be reasonably flat. But just to show you, this is that chart from the slide there. We zoom out, it's exactly as the slide shows. The overnight into the wave 3, the wave 4 pulled back. This was the end. This was the entry line here. Okay, that didn't take out the stop. Got the higher support level there. That's what we're looking for in that bullish momentum, and then that's when it goes. Okay. So any questions on the YM trade? Because this, you may only get one out of all of those 8 a day that actually sets up to do this. Okay, and some days you won't get any because we need to be trending. Okay. Any questions on this? How I isolated it, how I managed it, you know? Anything? All is good. Give it a couple of seconds and then we'll get on to NQ. No, okay, we'll go to NQ. Let's zoom out a little bit there. Don't know why that zoomed in so. Okay, so this has changed now. Remember, we still got that high of the wave 3 on NQ. This was me at 8 AM this morning when I took the screenshot. and then it came down and found support. It didn't break the 535. This was my trade entry at this point here, okay? And then we had the initial move up. We spiked right at the resistance level. I had a trailing stop at this position. If I can grab hold of it, this position here. Okay, and then it came back out and took me out because we started to move higher. This level was really strong support, and then we shot up, but it came back down quite quickly. I mean, one of these candles is 5 minutes, not that quickly. But at the end of the day, we're getting closer to the start of the US session, and I wanted to make it risk-free. So the reason, this was a good support level. It had a good move up into the trade. It found good support. It started to move, but this pivot level was just too much for it. This was a previous resistance level, but it didn't stop me going in the trade because, as you saw with YM, it can push through those pivot levels. But as long as I'm sensible and I manage the trade, and I've got some, there's only 10 ticks here, 50 bucks, whatever. It's a small trade, yeah, for one contract. But you've got to be in it to win it. That's on the back of all my t-shirts, and my inner circle will say that. You've got to be in it to win it. You haven't got a crystal ball. You don't know if that particular pivot level, this previous resistance level from overnight, is going to hold. So you've got to go, you've got to be mindful that risk to reward is one-to-one to that pivot level, but to the target, it was a lot higher, okay? Let me just get the little hand going there. But the risk to reward to the target level was, it was huge. So took a little bit of profit there, didn't make a loss. Yes, we'll have a look at that in a minute. But then we've continued then today, this pullback into this zone, okay? Now, this is really potentially start of a bear move. We've got this double top here, which occurred during the European session, and then we've pulled back. There's no real trend there. There's no trade, okay? No trade at all. There's no fifth wave trade now. We're going into the close. It can go flat. We need to be in the hour or two leading up to the US session, or during the US session, the first half to 3/4 of the session, to get those moves done. This one doesn't want to go at the moment in time. Yes, Don. So let's just have a quick look at RTY now. Okay, so now we've had a high. We need to redo all these measurements from earlier. Let me just delete that. Okay, so during today's session, been reasonably flat, okay? So session opened here, okay, and then we've sold off ever since. So this is where we isolate. So I did isolate back at the highs of the overnight session. Even if I'd have isolated at the lows of yesterday's session, that total flatness here is not a trend, okay? During the day, all we've done is sold off, guys. So we find the high of this particular trend, which is at a pivot point, and we isolate. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is where we are right now. This is live. So we've got to measure this. So we've got to measure the 535. The highest point on the wave 3 on the oscillator, click. 0, click. And then the highest point on the wave 3 again. So we haven't pulled back yet. The stochastic's not crossed over yet. So we're looking for a deeper pullback into that probability zone. Okay, Gary. So So now we're going in, you know, we're in the second half of the session now. Potentially we've got a short on RTY. However, Stochastic's got some more work to do. The wave 4 pullback's got some more work to do really, because the 535 has. So we need some more price action. Probably up to around about 1700 into this amber zone here would be good, but we'll see. If this starts to come back down now, there's no trade. Remember, all the stars have to be aligned. Has to cross over in the overbought zone because we're going short. The 535 has to be within the 90 to 140. We are not there yet, but we are tracking it. We've done our work and we're ready to go. So, you know, during the session, you may see this keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. It's got to be second nature to say, right, let's change that isolation that I did first thing in the morning. We've gone flat, but now during the US session, all we've done is gone downhill. This is the trend. Let's isolate at the top here. Okay, does that make sense? That's right. You've got, the key is you've got to be looking, watching the charts for those trades that may be setting up. And all they are is pullbacks against the main trend move. And then it's just isolating the start of that trend, whether it's a high or a low, and then seeing what the software says, okay? But we don't enter or even set up an entry until we've got that stochastic in the overbought zone, in this case. We've got the 535 between 90 and 140, and we've got a decent pullback into those pullback zones, okay? Does that make sense, yeah? It's not rocket science, and all this future strategy is an additional tool in your box for your trading. You don't have to trade a futures contract every single day. But what it does is present those really high probability trades like that YM trade this morning, and potentially the NQ trade, and even potentially this if it goes a little higher. When they happen and you've got all the stars aligned, everything's 535, stochastic, wave 4 pullback zone, got a good risk reward, good entry, you go for it. If it's a shallow fourth wave, Trevor, we're not interested, okay? Because it might fizzle out. It may turn into a complex wave 4, okay? We might come down a little bit and then go higher. At this point, I've not got a crystal ball. So we've set these rules in place with this particular indicator suite to make sure that we're going to get the highest probability move. And that highest probability move is a measured move back against the trend. That measured move isn't there yet. The stochastic's not crossed over in the overbought zone. The 535 is not between 90 and 140. And to be honest, that wave 4 is too shallow. Okay? Does that make sense? It's got to be that measured move against the trend. Okay, so that's RTY. So a quick look at ES, see what's going off there right now. Let's zoom out a little bit. As you can see here, not long after I took that screenshot, the 535 was broken. Okay, so there was no fifth wave move, and as you can see, it didn't reach target. It fizzled out at this resistance level. Okay, at this pivot level here. So there was no trade. We've potentially got a double top forming here, look, with that previous wave 3. We haven't got a trend right now, so it's pointless trying to isolate anything, okay? Because we haven't got a trend. You know, we can isolate, and just to remind those that have got this Thinkorswim Alien Wave Indicator Suite, you would look for this double top here. They're both the same, okay? So you take the second one, that is bar number 3033, and we are going to put, just isolate that there. But this is not a trend we're in at the moment. There's no trade. It's only very short term. 3033, wasn't it? Just have to let the indicator suite do its magic, run through its calculations. and then blow me out of the water. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, like I said, Uncle Paul knows, we're not in a trend, okay? We're in a correction, and we're in that tight range ever since the Asian session on the S, okay? Why? Because this 2,800 is a massive resistance level. If it breaks through there, we're going to go, okay? So we're near some highs at the moment, and it's very tough to get through there. So again, so I've isolated there. We've got an ABC correction. At this moment in time, we don't trade ABC corrections. There will be next year an Elliott Wave W5T Elite Training Course number 2, and that will be about trend reversals and ABC corrections. But at this moment in time, this strategy, we're just about trading the 5th wave. Okay, so that is the index futures. Let's go and have a look. Let's just minimize that. And let's bring down the other floor. Okay, so what has CL done today? Let's have a look. So this morning, remember, we isolated this, and around about this time, this wave 4 really took its time, okay? Did we have, I mean, to be honest, I didn't trade it. There may have been a trade there, Jerry. This is the highest point on the wave 3 here. So remember, I took those lows from yesterday on oil. We went flat, got flat again. Wave 4 did eventually come back, guys, and did hit the 5th wave target. You know, what can I say? It works. I had a lot on today. I didn't trade this. You know, can we learn from this? Highest point on there, the 0. Highest point on the wave 3. Yep. Stochastic crossed over in the oversold zone just. 535 was good. Entry, you see, this is where it may not have been a great trade. So we are going to be entering into all this resistance levels here. But then again, you've got to be in it to win it. This green line here is yesterday's high, okay? So that would sensibly would have been your entry above yesterday's high. The risk to reward would only be 1-to-1, so you wouldn't have gone in the trade anyway. But it did hit the 5th wave target. Now, where we are, that high's gone. Now we've had a wave 1, we've got a wave 2, and everything's being counted for us. So if this continues back lower below this wave 1, we're probably in a bearish trend. So when we wake up tomorrow, we can see this as our high, the high of today. Tomorrow will be the high of yesterday, and that's where we'll isolate if it continues to go lower. We could have gone in on the first fall, this first fall here, Jerry, but again, the reason I wouldn't have gone into that one is we had a failure at this point here, okay? So our risk to reward, stop loss here, entry here, is 1 to 0.5. There's no risk to reward. So no, I would definitely not have entered there. It didn't even come higher. Then we got this low point, but then again, you know, this here is the high of yesterday. That was our entry. It's only a 1-to-1 trade. It worked out in this case, fine. But you know, when it's this close, this pivot point to this low point here, that risk to reward's no good whatsoever. No, you definitely wouldn't have done that one, Jerry. No. So tomorrow when we wake up, we've got to consider if this does go selling off today and overnight, we could be in a bearish move on oil. But we don't know, we've not got a crystal ball. It could come back up and test this high. So we just have to see. Yeah, the stochastic didn't cross over here as well. Oh, sorry, here, the stochastic did cross over. That was good, okay? Sorry, here, the stochastic did not cross over. There is the 535 here. The stochastic did not cross over, so well spotted, Trevor. That would have stopped you going in as well at that point. Risk to reward and the stochastic wasn't with us. So low probability, and you've got to sort of train your brain to spot those. So how as six, let's go to gold first. Zoom out a little bit. I will do, Trevor. So with gold, initially, I isolated those highs of yesterday, guys, okay? Now, during the session today, that continued to go down and down and down and down and down, okay? And then we've had a pullback. So I isolated at this double top here during the Asian session. It still made no difference. The pullback was too deep. There's still no trade. The 535, look at it's almost one-to-one there. The pullback's been way too deep. There's no fifth wave trade there. So now we've got to think, right, this potentially could be the start of a bull move, okay? Let's discount this big bearish move. This is the low of today. There's going to be no short trade for me because this 535 is no good. Let's isolate it here. Let's see what it does overnight, okay? So when we wake up in the morning, or if we're so inclined, we stay up through the Asian session and we see this continue climbing, we've got our wave count ready. So the bar count there is 3061. Let's just change that. Let's apply that and let's let it do its thing. I've got a lot running on this computer, guys, a lot, and it's a very powerful computer. So just take time, just take its while to calculate. Forget that fifth wave at the moment. Okay, it wasn't a trade. It's just met certain criteria to label it. Stochastic didn't back it up, neither did the 535. All we're interested in at the moment is this low and how this progresses during the night. Okay, this is the close here coming up. Yeah, all we're interested in is identified that low. Is it going to continue on a bullish move? So when we wake up in the morning, we can see what it's done. Okay, there's no trade there right now. All I've done is preempted this low for tomorrow because it keeps it. That's right. Yes, this won't refresh now because it's been hit. But once that wave 3 is set and it starts to pull back, Don, that and the pullback zone adjusts until we get the wave 4 low and it starts to pull away from there, and then it's set. Okay, but obviously if I change the bar count to up here, it's going to disappear and everything like that. So when I start a new bar count, yes, that everything disappears, and all it's interested in is from that bar count forward. Yeah, what's happening in this trend? Does that make sense? What's happened before, it doesn't matter. It's what's happening now. So there's nothing, again, you were not looking to trade every single futures contract every single day. We've got 8 futures contracts, and out of those 8, we're looking for maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 trades a week that are high probability moves. That's all, because they're the ones that are going to give us the ticks and the wins. So we'll look at 6E. So again, we've got a low here, okay? initially I isolated 6E over here, and then we've continued to go down, okay, but then we've had this big pullback. You know, this is quite a big move. Okay, that's a big wave 1 and a big wave 2. That's not real. Yeah, we can see we've got false breakouts on the top. We need to isolate at today's low. Okay, that is 3057. So you can't just rely on the isolation you made first thing in the morning. You've got to understand what's happening to the trend, where the trend is. What did I say? 3037. Need to concentrate more. Oh, try that one again. So this is the trend we're in right now, okay? We're early in the trend. This is not a proper wave 4 pullback because the 535 didn't back us up, neither did the stochastic, okay? So this is just the wave count, keeping to those percentages and those fibrils and everything else. All we're interested in now is just allowing this to run into the close, through the Asian session, see where we are, okay? So I preempted tomorrow's by getting today's low. If that remains today's low as we go in, I've got a good starting point and I can see what's happened overnight, and I can make a decision whether to look for an, you know, an overnight high to isolate or just leave this one, okay? So I think we've covered quite a lot today, from just expanding using other examples, and a lot of it with this particular strategy is setting it up in the morning when you get up, okay? It's getting these 8 charts, or 4 if you're just doing the index futures, and isolating, making some general observations, putting your 535 in if you are potentially on a wave 4 pullback, and just getting everything ready just to keep an eye on. And then during the day, it's just seeing how these trends start to form. We're only interested in those potential trends. Bit deeper on RTY now. Let's have a look on RTY. Move that back up above. Yeah, it's going good. Let me just maximize that. So again, while I've been waffling on, 535 is getting close now, okay, on RTY. Stochastic is now in the overbought zone. We're looking for that to cross. So we're getting close now for this to potentially be a short. Obviously, we need that resistance level to hold, and we're at a previous step resistance level here as well. So we're pretty close to that, 1699.4. So this is getting close now to potentially setting up. So let's just figure out where our entry will be if this does find support. Okay, so it's a good example. As you can see now, what will happen is, if we make a new wave 4 high, this target zone will adjust. The pullback zone will not adjust. The wave 3 has been formed. But this target zone will adjust slightly if we get new wave 4 highs. But at this moment in time, we've got a major pivot level here. We've got some lows just below it. So we need to consider that as our entry point, okay? That needs to be outside the 6-4 moving average low as well. So for the next candle position, it will be, okay? So we've got these lows here around about 1695.5. Okay, so potentially that could be our entry. We haven't got the 535 and we haven't got the stochastic crossed yet. So we're not going to put an order on just yet, okay? So let's just play this one out. Might be a bit boring for 5 minutes just to see how it goes. you know, potentially stop loss is going to be here. So there's going to be great risk to reward there. I mean, I can draw that on now and it can be adjusted if it does make that new high. So we need the stop loss around 166. That's a bit high, but that's good. That's just above these highs as well here. So that's the 1699.50, and our entry 1695.50. Okay, let's just edit that because that's, we need the 0.5, we need the 1%, we need the 1.6. I'm a bit anal in the colours I use. I use the same colours for everything all the time. 0.5 is cyan. Let's just make them a bit thicker so you can see them. And the 1.6 a bit thicker as well. Okay, so we have a risk to reward of 1 to 1.6 into the target zone, guys. Okay, we're still not ready to press go. We've done a bit of work. We may have to adjust the stop. We don't want to adjust the entry. That is the right entry. It's below this low pivot. It's below this main pivot point for the software here, and it's below the 6-4 moving average low. That is our entry, regardless, if we get all the other things lined up. The stop loss is all the way up here at 1699.50. So we've got a bit of leadway if it does try this resistance level as well. So all in all, we're pretty good. Let's just draw another line in there for the stop loss just to show you, because this is being recorded, obviously. So we just want to make sure we show that stop loss. I'm going to draw the line there showing that there. Okay, let's change that to red. Cool, what happened there? I'll try that one again. I think I deleted it instead of adjusting it. Sorry, again. I always put my stop losses in red and my end is in green. So from earlier on in this training session, we identified the main move down. From the start of the session, really, from this pivot point. So we've isolated the wave count. The software has done its job, 1, 2, 3, and then we're pulling back into a wave 4. We've drawn the 535. We're still not in there yet, and the stochastic's not crossed over in the overbought zone, but we are getting close. So what I've done is I've put my risk to reward on, my entry, and my stop loss provisional. Okay, so let's just go big on this bit now. Really big. Okay, so now all we're looking for, we've got some indecision here. This is good. You know, we're not there quite there yet. We've just changed candles. The 535 is right on the cusp. Okay, it's right at the 90%, and we're just about to cross over. So what will happen now? Even if we start to move down, we will see this 535 print on the next one, either 0 or slightly green. Okay, and also the stochastic will cross. If we go higher, then obviously we want to make sure it doesn't take out this stop at 1699.50. So this is a good trade. It does, Jerry, yeah. So this is trade, and Jerry, you're helping me with the trials for the signals. Could you put this one on the Twitter, please, because this is a good signal. The only problem with this is you may have to manage it into and through the close. We are going red now. Again, I can't wait 15-20 minutes for this to happen. Yeah, maybe, but the thing is, Jerry, why not be a little bit more conservative with that stop above this other resistance level when we've still got a risk to reward of 1 to 1.6 into the target zone? don't be too sticky. It might pull back. We might get a tiptoe trigger and it might pull back. We've got to let it run. We've got a resistance level here that was really strong, and we're above that. We've got a decent risk reward with a decent entry. Why not? Why not be a little bit more conservative with that stop? Yes, you're going to make more money potentially, but the risk reward still at our good 1 to 1.6, which is pretty good. So we'll just wait for this candle to close, and then we'll close up this training session. Again, it's been recorded, and it will be under the main lesson video for day trading futures. And then, if this does trigger and pan out, I'll take a screenshot and also put that in there as well. But this is a good example. We've gone through the whole day from getting up in the morning, setting everything up, isolating. Couple of trades, one worked out, one was a little bit of profit. The others weren't any good, but we tracked the trend during the day, and tracking that trend during the day has led to a potential short on RTY now. Great setup with an entry below a pivot point, below these lows here. Good risk to reward. 535, when it does change next time, should be between the 90 and 140, and then the stochastic should cross over. And if that's the case, put the order on. As long as it doesn't break this wave 4 high, the order stays on. It's the Russell, Trevor. The E-mini Russell 2000 index. We've had some good winners on this on the trials, haven't we, Jerry? There's been some big moves on this. It's not the sexiest one, but we really get some, we get more trades on this RTY than we do on ES. Okay? Okay, we're starting to come down now. We've just breached this indecision doji before. We've just breached the low there, which is good. If this candle closes pretty solid, that would be pretty good. Could be, if we zoom in, we're just on the cusp of that 90, just. And to me, that's good. We're on the line. Now got a full candle. We've got to consider now that the stochastic has crossed over, guys. The 90 to 140 is just okay. We need to put the order on now, just in case. There we go. It's just printed the next candle. We've got clean air now between the 90 and the 140. Stochastics crossed over. We've got all our stars aligned. Okay? As long as this doesn't come up and break this wave 4 high in our stop, we are good to go. Okay? Any questions on, it may, hopefully this has seemed very simple. Okay? I will go through it one more time for the video. Today's US session opened. I adjusted my, sort of halfway through the session before we started this lesson, I adjusted my isolation to the high of the day because ever since it's sold off and we've got a trend. Okay. Then we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4. Half an hour or so ago, well, 20 minutes ago during this lesson, we identified this as a potential. It was about this sort of area here, but we needed some more pullback on the 535 and the stochastic. That has happened. We found resistance at a previous resistance level in the green zone. 85% probability it's going to go on and make a new wave 5 low into our target zone. That target zone is now set because we've started to move away. We've put our entry on. The entry is simple. It's below the pivot point here, this green dotted line, and below this low here, and outside of the 6-4 moving average low on our Elliott wave indicator suite. I've been conservative with the stop loss, not just above the wave 4, but also above this big resistance level here, just in case we get a tiptoe trigger and it comes back. Because what we're looking for is another lower resistance level. We've got a higher one here, a lower one for the wave 4, and if it does come back, we've just got to ride it and see if we get there. So, and then we've got a risk reward of 1 to 1.6 into the target zone. So that's it. Okay. It doesn't happen every day, but what you got to do is set up every morning, just keep an eye on them, follow the trends, isolate the wave count, and they're obvious. It's obvious when it's going downhill or one way and it pulls back, you can see where the start of that trend is. And there should be nothing more difficult than that. Don't start putting loads of different indicators on there. This indicator suite, this is all you need, okay, for this type of trade. Any questions before I close up for the day? Okay, everybody seems to have understood it. So what I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to stop the recording a second.